My friends always invited me out on the days my boyfriend planned dates, and now he's breaking up with me because he's tired of being the second option. Isn't he overreacting? I honestly don't think people realize how exhausting it is to maintain a brand while also dealing with someone who has the social personality of a beige wall. Mark, my now ex-boyfriend, was always the kind of guy who thought a big night meant ordering Thai food and watching a documentary about mushrooms. I, on the other hand, have a community of 15,000 people who actually care about what I'm wearing and where I'm seen. We met at a generic coffee shop where he was reading something boring, and I was clearly the most interesting thing in the room. He seemed to appreciate my energy at first, or at least he liked being the one holding the camera while I worked on my angles. It felt like a fair trade-off back then because every creator needs a dedicated assistant who doesn't mind staying in the background. The problem started when my career, and yes, it is a career, really began to take off with the local IT crowd. My friends who are actually relevant in the scene started inviting me to high-tier events that literally everyone was dying to get into. Mark would choose those exact same nights to plan something, which usually just meant a reservation at a restaurant that hasn't been trending since 2019. I tried to explain to him that my presence is required at these openings to maintain my engagement in my network. He'd give me this look, like I was the one being difficult just for wanting to succeed and be seen with people who matter. It felt like he was intentionally trying to sabotage my growth by anchoring me to these domestic, low-impact evenings that don't even make for good content. Every time a notification popped up in our group chat about a last-minute VIP table or a gallery soft launch, I'd feel this rush of adrenaline. These are my people, the ones who understand that aesthetic is a lifestyle, not just a filter you slap on a photo. Mark would be sitting there on the couch looking at me with those puppy dog eyes because he'd bought tickets to a play or something equally dusty. I always told him that we could do his thing any other Tuesday, but these events were once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for my image. He started getting this annoying habit of sighing whenever I picked up my phone, which is so incredibly toxic and controlling if you think about it. It's like he couldn't handle the fact that I was more in demand than his little routine. One particular Friday, the tension finally hit a ceiling because he had surprised me with a weekend trip to some cabin in the middle of nowhere. Just as he was telling me about it, my best friend Chloe texted the group saying we had been invited to the launch of the new rooftop lounge downtown. It was the event of the season and every major influencer in the city was going to be there, which meant I absolutely couldn't miss it. I told Mark that the cabin would still be there next month, but this rooftop launch was a pivotal moment for my brand's summer series. He didn't even try to understand. He just sat there and told me that he was tired of competing for a slot in my Google Calendar. I laughed because it sounded so dramatic, but he wasn't joking, which was honestly so embarrassing for him. I went to the rooftop event anyway because I'm a professional and I know how to prioritize my future over a temper tantrum. The night was perfect, my outfit was a 10, and I got some of the best reels I've ever posted in my entire life. I came home expecting him to be asleep, or maybe a little grumpy, but instead I found him sitting in the dark with a suitcase by the door. He told me that he was done being my backup plan, and that he deserved someone who actually wanted to spend time with him without checking their likes. I told him he was being incredibly sensitive and that his timing was ruinous for my post-event mood. He didn't even argue, he just walked out, leaving me in a house that suddenly felt way too quiet for my liking. The next morning, I woke up to a long-winded text basically saying that he felt invisible in our relationship and that he was officially ending things. I was so shocked that I almost dropped my phone, mostly because he did this right before we were supposed to attend my cousin's wedding where I needed a +1. It's so typical of him to make my life harder just because he couldn't handle the spotlight being on me and my friends. He's acting like I committed some huge betrayal when all I did was be successful and socially active. My friends all agree that he's just insecure about my status and is trying to punish me for being more popular than him. It's just so unfair that I'm being painted as the villain for simply having a life that people actually care about. Now he won't even answer my calls to discuss the logistics of the breakup, which is so immature and frankly a bit of a power move. I had to go to brunch with the girls just to vent about how he's trying to ruin my reputation by making me look like the bad guy. They were all supportive, of course, telling me that I'm too much woman for a guy who just wants to stay home and hide. But deep down, I'm annoyed because he was actually very good at handling the stuff I didn't want to do, like taxes or fixing the Wi-Fi. It's like he doesn't realize that by leaving, he's creating a massive inconvenience for me during my busiest season. He really needs to get over himself and realize that being the boyfriend of an influencer comes with certain sacrifices. The worst part is that he's telling mutual friends that I chose a hashtag over a human, which is such a manipulative way to phrase it. I chose my career and my social standing, which any empowered woman would do in my position. He's trying to make me look shallow when I'm actually just being strategic about my time and energy. If he really loved me, he would have been proud to see me thriving on those rooftops instead of sulking about a cabin trip. It's just classic male ego wanting to be the center of the universe even when they aren't the one bringing the value to the table. I'm sure he'll realize how much he's lost once he sees my next few posts and realizes he's no longer part of the we. I've decided to just focus on my content for now, because that's the only thing that actually gives back what you put into it. Mark can stay in his boring little apartment and eat his Thai food alone if that's what he really wants. I'm sure he'll come crawling back once the reality of being single hits him and he realizes no one else is going to give him the status I did. In the meantime, I have 3 parties this weekend and a collaboration with a skincare brand that requires my full attention. He's just a distraction that I don't have time for right now, even if his absence is a bit more noticeable than I'd like to admit. He's definitely overreacting, and everyone who counts knows it. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You sound like you're dating your Instagram feed instead of a real person. Mark didn't leave because of your success. He left because you're fundamentally selfish." App's reply, spoken like someone with 0 followers and even less ambition. "It's called branding. Look it up before you try to lecture me on my personal life." Anonymous user 2 says, "He planned a trip and you ditched it for a party? That's not being an influencer. That's being a terrible partner. He's lucky he got out." Oops reply, "The party was a networking event, which is work. I'm sorry your life is so slow that you don't understand the concept of a mandatory social appearance." Update 1. It's been exactly 5 days since Mark walked out with that dramatic suitcase, and honestly, the silence in the apartment is starting to get a little grating. I spent the first 48 hours posting new chapter stories with upbeat music, making sure I looked absolutely radiant in every shot. My engagement spiked because people love a breakup glow-up, so at least his little tantrum served some purpose for the algorithm. I've been staying busy with the girls, hitting every happy hour and event on the calendar to prove that I'm completely unfazed by his absence. It's important to maintain the image that I am the prize and that he's the one who lost out on a high-value lifestyle. However, I did realize that I haven't actually eaten a real meal in days because Mark was the one who usually handled the grocery shopping and cooking. I tried to call Chloe to see if she wanted to come over and help me organize my new PR packages, but she said she was too busy with her own content. It's fine, I totally get the hustle, but it's a bit annoying because she's usually the first one to ask for my help with her lighting. I ended up having to film everything myself using a tripod, and it took 3 times as long because I didn't have anyone to give me feedback on my angles. I never realized how much work Mark actually did behind the scenes until I had to do it all while also trying to look perfect. He used to just instinctively know when the lighting was shifting, or when my hair was out of place, which was a nice perk I took for granted. Now I'm staring at hours of footage that looks amateur because I'm doing the work of 2 people. To make matters worse, the Wi-Fi started acting up, and I have no idea how to reset the router without the password that Mark changed last month. I tried to text him to get it, but he has me on Do Not Disturb, which is incredibly petty for a grown man. I had to go to a Starbucks just to upload my latest reel, which was a total nightmare because the lighting there is disgusting. People were staring at me while I was trying to get the right take, and I felt so exposed without my usual support system. It's like the universe is trying to punish me for being productive, which is just so typical of how things go when you're on top. I really hope Mark realizes that by being difficult, he's actively hurting my business. I ran into one of Mark's friends at the gym today, and the way he looked at me was so judgmental, like I'd committed a crime. I tried to be the bigger person and asked how Mark was doing, and he just said, "He's finally happy," which is clearly a lie. He told them to save face. No one is happier after losing a girlfriend who has a verified badge and a clear path to stardom. It's obviously a narrative they're pushing to make me look like the loser in this situation, but I'm not falling for it. I just laughed it off and told him that I was glad Mark was finally finding some inner peace while I was finding actual success. The guy just walked away, which just proves that Mark's circle is just as immature as he is. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You're complaining about Wi-Fi and lighting while he's probably mourning a 3-year relationship. You are the definition of shallow." Ops reply, "My relationship with my audience is just as important as a 3-year stint with a guy who hated leaving the house. Priorities, honey." Anonymous user 2 says, "The fact that you think he's lying about being happy says everything. He's probably enjoying a quiet dinner without a ring light in his face for once." Ops reply, "Quiet dinners are for people who have nothing to talk about. He'll be bored and back in my DMs by the end of the month." Update 2. 3 weeks have passed and the breakup energy is starting to shift in a way that I didn't exactly anticipate for my brand. I went to a high-end lounge opening last night, the kind of place where I'm usually the center of the table, but things felt off. My squad was all there, but they seemed more interested in talking to this new girl who just hit 50K followers than in my latest drama. I tried to tell them about how Mark is still being a child about the router password, but Chloe literally cut me off to ask the new girl what presets she uses. It was incredibly rude and made me realize that these people are only around when you're at the absolute peak of the mountain. I felt like a background character in my own social circle, which is a sensation I haven't experienced in years. Later that night, I saw a post from a mutual friend showing Mark at a hiking trail with some girl I've never seen before. She was wearing hiking boots, actual muddy hiking boots, and had zero makeup on, which is just so embarrassing for him. It's obvious he's trying to rebound with someone who is the polar opposite of me to prove some kind of point. He's literally dating a basic, just to spite me, which is the most transparent move he could have made. I almost felt sorry for him, but then I noticed how he was looking at her in the photo, and it was that same look he used to give me. It made me feel this weird pit in my stomach, probably just because the lighting in the photo was so poorly executed. I decided to test the waters and sent Mark a casual text asking if he wanted to get coffee to clear the air, and maybe discuss the couch we bought together. I didn't actually care about the couch, but I wanted to see if he was still under my thumb or if this hiking girl was a serious thing. He replied hours later with a simple, "No thanks, I'm good. Just keep the couch," which is so dismissive it's practically a hate crime. He didn't even use an emoji or ask how I was doing after the big launch last week. It's like he's completely erased me from his memory, which is impossible given how much I did for his social standing. I'm starting to think he might actually be more delusional than I thought if he thinks he can just move on that easily. My views are starting to dip a little because I don't have that couple dynamic content anymore, and the solo stuff is getting repetitive. I tried to do a day in the life of a single CEO video, but it just felt hollow because there was no one there to film the candid moments. I had to use a timer, and you can totally tell I'm rushing to get into position before the shutter clicks. It's exhausting being your own production team, and I'm starting to resent Mark even more for leaving me in this lurch. He knew how much I relied on him for the behind-the-scenes stuff, and he just walked away right when I needed him most. It's the ultimate act of selfishness dressed up as self-respect. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "So you tested him just to see if you still had power over him? You don't want him back. You just want your cameraman back." Ops reply, "I want a partner who supports my vision. If that involves holding a camera, then that's part of the job description." Anonymous user 2 says, "The basic hiking girl looks genuinely happy, unlike you who seems obsessed with engagement metrics. Maybe take the hint?" Ops reply, "Happiness doesn't pay the bills or get you into VIP lounges. I'll take my metrics over a muddy trail any day." Update 3. It's been 2 months now, and I finally had a moment that really put things into a perspective I wasn't prepared for. I was driving home from a late-night shoot, one that Chloe flaked on at the last minute, and my tire completely blew out on the highway. I pulled over, heart racing, and instinctively pulled out my phone to call Mark because he always knew what to do with the car. Then I remembered we hadn't spoken in weeks, and I realized I didn't even have a roadside assistance number saved. I sat there in the dark, the hazard lights blinking, and I felt this overwhelming wave of actual physical loneliness. I tried calling 3 different besties from the group chat, and every single one of them went to voicemail or said they were at an event and couldn't talk. I ended up having to wait 2 hours for a tow truck in the pouring rain, and by the time I got home my hair was ruined and my makeup was running down my face. I looked in the mirror and realized that if I posted a photo of myself like this, no one would even care unless it was for relatability points. The people I've been spending all my time with didn't show up when I was actually in trouble. They only show up when there's an open bar. It's a very uncomfortable realization to have when you've built your entire identity on being the most popular person in the room. Mark would have been there in 20 minutes, probably with a thermos of tea and a jacket for me to wear. I hate that I'm even thinking about him like this, but the contrast is becoming impossible to ignore. I checked Instagram while I was waiting for my hair to dry, and I saw that Mark and the hiking girl are officially in a relationship. They posted a series of photos from a camping trip, and for the first time I didn't look at the lighting or the composition. I looked at the way they were laughing, and it looked real, in a way that my staged, candid shots never do. My friends are all texting me saying she's a downgrade and that I'm way hotter, but it feels like they're just saying it, because that's what we do. None of them actually offered to come over and keep me company while I was stuck on the highway. I'm starting to feel like I'm standing in a room full of people, and yet I'm completely and utterly alone. I tried to post a story about fake friends to see who would check in on me, but only 2 people even replied with a heart emoji. It's like everyone is so wrapped up in their own aesthetic that there's no room for actual human connection anymore. I spent the night looking through old photos of me and Mark, and I noticed how many of them I never posted because he didn't look cool enough. In those photos, I actually look happy, not just on brand, which is a distinction I didn't think mattered until now. I'm sitting in this big, quiet apartment with a broken router and a flat tire, wondering if the rooftop parties were actually worth it. It's a very bitter pill to swallow, but I'm still convinced that he overreacted by leaving so abruptly. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "The fake friend story is the ultimate cry for help. You pushed away the only real person in your life for people who wouldn't even pick up the phone." Ops reply, "I was just making an observation about the industry. Don't read too much into it. I'm doing fine." Anonymous user 2 says, "Welcome to reality, Ope. It's cold and rainy and your followers can't change a tire. Mark won this breakup." Ops reply, "Nobody wins a breakup, and I still have my career. A flat tire is just a temporary setback, not a life sentence." Update 4. 3 months have passed, and I'm currently sitting at the bar of yet another exclusive launch party, sipping a drink that tastes like expensive sugar. Chloe and the rest of the girls are a few feet away, huddled around a ring light, trying to capture the perfect slow-motion toast for their stories. I watched them for a while, seeing the fake smiles turn on the second the camera was pointed at them and vanish the moment the record button was released. It's a choreographed dance that I've mastered, but tonight, my feet feel heavy, and the music is just too loud. I keep checking my phone, hoping for a notification that isn't an app alert or a bot commenting on my latest post, but there's nothing. I'm surrounded by success, and yet I've never felt more like a failure in my entire life. I saw Mark earlier today at the grocery shop, the one we used to go to together every Sunday morning. He was with her, and they were arguing over which brand of cereal to buy, laughing and bumping shoulders in the aisle. He didn't see me, and for once, I didn't want him to. I ducked behind a display of paper towels because I couldn't bear for him to see me looking so hollow. He looked lighter, as if a literal weight had been lifted off his shoulders the moment he stepped out of my frame. I realized then that I wasn't just a second option to him. I was a person who made him feel like an accessory to a life he didn't even want to live. I traded a man who loved me for a crowd that only likes me when the filters are just right. The most painful part is knowing that I can't even tell my friends how I feel because they wouldn't know how to respond without a script. If I started crying right now, they'd probably just ask if I wanted them to film it for a mental health awareness post. There is no one to talk to, no one to fix the Wi-Fi, and no one to tell me that I'm enough without the 15,000 strangers watching me. I've built a beautiful, glittering cage for myself, and I'm the only one who has to live in it. I still tell myself that Mark was the one who gave up, but as I watch my best friends ignore me for a better photo op, I know the truth. I didn't choose my career over him. I chose my vanity, and now I have to sleep in the cold, perfectly lit bed I made.